The desert burned under a cruel sun. Dust rose with every step of the slavers as they dragged their captives across the cracked earth. Heavy chains rattled. The air smelled of sweat, iron, and fear. Among the line of prisoners was a small alien girl, no older than 10. Her violet skin was bruised, her silver-white hair tangled and dirty. Her large crystal blue eyes shimmered with fear, but also with something else. Hope, faint and fragile. She struggled to keep up, her small legs trembling with exhaustion. Every time she stumbled, the slavers yanked the chain hard, making her cry out in pain. From a distance, hidden behind broken rocks, a boy watched. His name was Aaron. He was human, only 12 years old, but his eyes burned with something older than his years. His clothes were torn, his skin smudged with dirt, but he clenched his fists with determination. He had seen too many raids, too many people taken, but this time he couldn't stay silent. Aaron waited until the slavers made camp. The alien girl was thrown into a cage made of bent steel rods, her chains locked tightly. The guards laughed and drank around the fire, never thinking a child would dare to challenge them. Night fell. The desert turned cold, the wind sharp against the skin. Aaron crept closer, moving between shadows, his small body silent. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. He crawled to the cage, his eyes meeting hers. She gasped softly, backing away at first. "Who are you?" she whispered in broken human words. Aaron placed a finger to his lips. "Sure, I'm here to help." Her eyes widened, tears forming. "No one, help me. They kill." Aaron shook his head, gripping the bars of the cage. "Not tonight." He pulled a piece of metal from his pocket, stolen from the ruins of a ship. His hands trembled as he worked at the lock. Sparks flew as he twisted and pried. Finally, with a sharp snap, the lock broke open. The door creaked. The alien girl stared at him as if he were a miracle. Her chains clattered as she stepped out, weak but free. She whispered, "Why? Why you help?" Aaron swallowed hard. "Because no one else will. Because you don't deserve this." Suddenly, a guard stirred. Aaron grabbed her hand quickly. "Come on." They ran. The desert stretched endlessly, the stars bright above. Behind them, shouts erupted as the slavers discovered the escape. Torches flared, boots pounded, chains rattled. But Aaron didn't let go of her hand. He pulled her across the sand, his lungs burning, his legs screaming with pain. At last, they reached the canyon. They hid between rocks, crouching low as the slavers' searchlights swept the desert. The girl's breathing was sharp and fast, her tears cutting trails through the dust on her face. Aaron held her shoulders. "Listen to me. You're safe now. I won't let them take you again." Her lips trembled. "Promise?" Aaron looked into her eyes. He felt the weight of that word. He wasn't just a boy anymore. In that moment, he became something more. He nodded firmly. "I promise. No matter what happens, I'll protect you." The girl stared at him for a long time, as if testing his soul. Then she reached out her small hand. "Liara," she whispered, giving him her name. Aaron took her hand, gripping it tight. "Aaron, and I won't leave you, Liara, ever." The shouts of the slavers grew louder. Torches flickered closer. Aaron pulled Liara deeper into the canyon. Their footsteps echoed as they ran into the darkness. Two children bound by a vow stronger than chains. That night, under the cold stars, a promise was made, a promise that would outlive childhood, outlive war, and reach across decades. Aaron had freed her once. He didn't know it then, but one day she would return, not as a frightened girl in chains, but as a queen. And the boy who had kept his promise would face a destiny he could never have imagined. The night in the canyon stretched long, filled with the sounds of searching slavers. Aaron and Liara crouched together in the shadows, their small bodies pressed against the cold stone. Every shout, every echo of boots on rock, made Liara flinch. Aaron kept her hand in his, whispering softly, "I won't let them find us. I promise." For a time, it seemed his words might be enough. The torches passed, the voices faded, and silence returned. Liara leaned against him, her crystal blue eyes half closed, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. But just before dawn, the earth trembled. Aaron woke with a start. A low rumble shook the canyon walls. He scrambled to his feet, pulling Liara up. In the distance, engines roared. The slavers weren't done searching. They had brought more than torches and chains. A massive transport ship descended, its engines kicking up storms of dust. The ground shook as armored soldiers spilled out, their glowing weapons cutting through the dark. Aaron's heart pounded. "Run!" he shouted, dragging Liara deeper into the canyon. They sprinted, their bare feet scraping on stone. But the soldiers were faster, their searchlights slicing through the shadows. Energy blasts struck the walls, spraying shards of rock around them. Liara stumbled, crying out as the chains on her ankles caught against a stone. Aaron yanked at them, cursing under his breath. The metal dug into her skin, leaving deep marks. The soldiers closed in. A net fired, glowing with energy, wrapping around Liara and pulling her off her feet. She screamed, reaching for Aaron. "No!" Aaron roared, grabbing the net with both hands. His muscles strained, his skin blistered against the burning wires. He pulled with everything he had, but the strength of a boy was no match for the slavers' machines. Liara's tearful eyes locked onto his. "Aaron, you live. Grow strong. Find me. I won't leave you," he shouted, his voice breaking. She gave him a trembling smile through her tears. "Promise me again." Aaron's throat tightened. "I promise. I'll come for you." Before he could say more, the soldiers ripped her away. The net dragged her into the ship's hold, her silver hair glowing in the dim light. The door slammed shut, the engines roared, and the ship lifted into the sky, leaving Aaron on his knees in the dust. He screamed her name until his voice broke. The canyon echoed with his cry, but she was gone. Days passed, then weeks. Aaron searched the desert for any trace of her, but all he found were footprints buried by the wind. The promise he had made haunted him, burning like fire in his chest. As years went by, Aaron grew. He trained with survivors of the raids, joining resistance fighters who struck back against the slavers. He learned to fight, to lead, to survive. His hands grew strong, his eyes sharp. He carried scars on his skin, but deeper scars in his heart. Every battle, every raid, every strike he made against the slavers carried the same purpose: to find her. But Liara was not lost. Far away, she was carried across the stars. The slavers did not treat her like the others. Instead of breaking her, they hid her. Whispers spread among them. She was no ordinary child. She carried the blood of queens, the heir to a royal line thought extinct. In secret chambers, she grew. They dressed her in fine garments, taught her languages, tried to twist her into a tool of control. But in her heart, she remembered the boy in the desert. She remembered his hand gripping hers, his voice swearing never to leave. When nights grew long and lonely, she whispered his name to the stars. "Aaron, you promised." Back on Earth's frontier colonies, Aaron sat by a fire one night after battle. His comrades celebrated their small victory, but Aaron stared into the flames, lost in thought. He clenched a broken chain in his hand. The only thing he had taken from the night Liara was taken. Rian, his closest ally, sat beside him. "You fight harder than any of us." "Why?" Aaron's jaw tightened. "Because I made a promise, and until I keep it, I won't stop." Rian studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Then we'll fight with you, until the stars burn out." Aaron said nothing, but inside, his vow burned brighter. He didn't know how or when, but one day he would find Liara again, and when he did, nothing in the galaxy would stop him from keeping his promise. The desert had shaped him. The battles had hardened him. By the time Aaron was 25, he was no longer a frightened boy who once ran from slavers. He had become a fighter that the enemy feared. Among the resistance, his name carried weight. Some called him the Ghost of the Sands, because he could strike a convoy at night and vanish without a trace. Others simply called him the one who never stops. But no matter what the others believed, Aaron's purpose was the same. He fought for one person. Every battle, every scar, every night spent under the stars brought him back to the promise. Liara. One night, after raiding a supply outpost, Aaron sat with his closest ally, Rian, near a campfire. The men around them laughed, drank, and celebrated, but Aaron's gaze was distant. His hand turned over the small broken chain he carried, the one he had kept since that night years ago. Rian noticed and sighed. Still thinking about her? Aaron's jaw tightened. I never stopped. Rian shook his head. You don't even know if she's alive. Aaron's eyes flashed. She's alive. I'd feel it if she weren't. Before Rian could answer, a scout hurried into the circle, breathless. We found something. Not cargo, not weapons. Rumors. The slavers are moving someone important. A princess. The camp quieted. Even the laughter died. Aaron's head snapped toward the scout. Princess? He asked, his voice sharp. The scout nodded. Yes. They say she's royal, hidden for years. The slavers guard her more heavily than anyone else. They move her in a traveling fortress across the wastelands. Aaron's heart pounded. A fortress. A royal prisoner. A girl hidden away since childhood. The firelight flickered across his face as he whispered, Liara? Rian frowned. Aaron, it could be anyone. Don't. But Aaron's eyes burned. It's her. I know it. For weeks, Aaron followed the rumors. Scouts reported the fortress moving like a giant machine across the desert, bristling with weapons and guarded by entire battalions. No one dared get close. Those who tried never returned. Still, Aaron tracked it. He studied its patterns, where it stopped for supplies, how often it changed direction. Every night, he drew its shape in the sand, committing it to memory. He was no longer just a fighter. He was a hunter, and his prey was the fortress that held her. Finally, one moonlit night, Aaron climbed a ridge with Rian and a handful of scouts. They lay flat against a stone, staring across the sands. There it was. The fortress crawled across the desert like a beast of steel and fire. Its wheels were as tall as houses, its walls covered in towers and cannons. Strange alien runes glowed faintly across its surface, pulsing like veins of light. The rumble of its engines shook the ground even from miles away. Aaron's breath caught. His chest felt heavy, but not with fear, with hope. She's in there, he whispered. Rian muttered, You don't know that. Aaron didn't take his eyes off the fortress. I do. As they watched, a balcony on the upper level came into view. Guards in gleaming armor stood around a central figure. The figure stepped forward into the moonlight, and Aaron's world stopped. Her hair, long and silver, caught the glow of the night. Her violet skin shone faintly. She stood tall, no longer the small girl in chains, but graceful, commanding, even in captivity. Aaron's throat tightened. Liara? She was older now, perhaps 25, but he knew her instantly. The same eyes, the same presence. He gripped the rock until his knuckles turned white. As if sensing something, Liara turned. Her gaze swept the desert, searching the darkness. For one impossible second, her eyes seemed to meet his. Aaron froze, his heart slamming in his chest. Did she see him? Did she know? Her lips parted slightly, but then a guard pulled her away. She disappeared into the fortress, swallowed by the shadows of steel. Aaron's hand shook. His chest burned with fire. She was alive. She was real. She was here. Rian whispered, Aaron, don't do this. That fortress is death. You can't just storm it. Aaron turned to him, eyes blazing. I don't care. I promised her. I won't fail again. The fortress rumbled on, fading into the distance. But Aaron's vow echoed across the sands. This time, nothing in the galaxy would stop him. The fortress moved like a living beast, unstoppable, a mountain of steel on endless wheels. To the ordinary eye, it was untouchable. No army small enough to survive its cannons. No rebel group strong enough to climb its walls. But to Aaron, it was no longer just a fortress. It was a prison that held his promise. For days, Aaron and his scouts followed it from the dunes, always at a distance. They watched where it slowed, how often its guards rotated, which hatches opened for repairs. Aaron never looked away, his sharp eyes drinking in every detail. He carved maps into sand at night, memorizing its every movement. Rian grew restless. One evening, as they crouched by the fire, he said, Aaron, This is madness. We are 20 men. That fortress holds thousands. Even if Liara is inside, you can't reach her. Aaron didn't answer right away. He kept staring into the flames, the broken chain in his hand glinting in the light. Finally, he said, "When I was 12, I promised her I would never leave her. I failed once. I won't fail again. I'd rather die keeping my word than live knowing I broke it." The camp fell silent. Some of the fighters looked away, unwilling to speak against him. Others felt the weight in his words. They had seen Aaron survive battles no one else would dare enter. If anyone could attempt the impossible, it was him. At last, Rian sighed and shook his head. "Then I suppose I'll die beside you, old friend." Inside the fortress, Liara sat in her chamber. The walls were polished metal, decorated with symbols of power, but to her they were nothing more than chains without weight. She had been raised in captivity, taught the ways of diplomacy, language, and command. The slavers treated her as a prize, a royal heir to bargain with. They called her the heiress, never her true name, but Liara had never forgotten who she was. She had never forgotten the desert night, when a boy's hand pulled her from the cage, when his voice cut through the darkness. "I promise, no matter what happens, I'll protect you." When loneliness pressed against her heart, she whispered his name, Aaron. She wondered if he still lived, if his promise had survived the years. Sometimes she swore she felt his presence, as if his eyes still searched for hers across the stars. That night, she stood by the barred window of her chamber, staring into the desert horizon. The fortress rumbled beneath her feet, but she closed her eyes and whispered, "If you are still out there, Aaron, I believe in you." Meanwhile, Aaron and his men made their plan. They discovered the fortress had a weakness, a massive maintenance hatch that opened for only a few moments when the wheels locked to clear sand and debris. The opening was small, but enough for a team to slip inside if timed perfectly. Aaron laid out the plan in the sand. "We wait until midnight. The hatch will open here, on the west side. We slip in silent. Once inside, we split. Half to plant charges at the power sector, the rest to move toward the upper levels. Liara will be there. If we can't reach her, we blow the fortress apart." The men exchanged uneasy glances. To most, it sounded like suicide. But Aaron's voice was steady, his eyes sharp. His certainty pulled them in like gravity. One of the younger fighters asked, "And if we don't come back?" Aaron looked at him without hesitation. "Then we die keeping a promise. And there is no better way to die." As the night of the infiltration approached, Aaron sharpened his blade and checked his gear. He moved with calm, but inside his heart raced. Every step brought him closer to the girl he had once held by the hand in the desert. Every step brought him closer to fulfilling a vow that had burned inside him for decades. When the sun set, the desert cooled. The fortress rolled across the sands, its searchlights sweeping. Aaron's team crouched low in the dunes, cloaks covering their bodies. The fortress groaned, wheels locking for just a moment. The hatch below cracked open, spilling steam and dust. Aaron's voice was quiet but firm. "Now." They moved like shadows, sprinting across the sand, slipping inside the beast of metal. The hatch closed behind them with a thunderous slam. For the first time in 20 years, Aaron was inside the prison that held his promise. And somewhere above, Liara whispered into the night, as if she could feel him drawing near. The fortress was alive with sound. Metal groaned, pipes hissed, and the hum of giant engines shook the walls. Aaron and his men crouched in the maintenance corridors, the heat pressing against their skin. Every breath smelled of oil and smoke. "Stay low," Aaron whispered. No sound. The men nodded, moving like shadows through the labyrinth of steel. Aaron led the way, his eyes sharp, every step fueled by the fire in his chest. He knew where she was. He could feel it. The group split as planned. Half slipped toward the power sector to plant charges. The rest followed Aaron through the inner passages. Their boots were muffled by cloth wraps, their blades drawn. But the fortress was no fool. Patrols of armored guards clanked through the halls, their glowing eyes sweeping every shadow. Twice, Aaron pressed his men against the walls, holding his breath as soldiers passed within arm's reach. Sweat rolled down his temple, but he didn't move. Finally, They reached the mid-level. Aaron froze. A sound drifted through the air, faint but clear, a voice. It was a song. Soft, melodic, haunting. The voice carried through the metal corridors like a memory. Aaron's chest tightened. He would know that voice anywhere. Liara. He followed the sound, his men trailing behind. The path opened into a guarded hallway. At its end, a chamber stood barred by heavy gates. Inside, bathed in pale light, stood a woman. Her hair was long, silver white, flowing down her back. Her violet skin glowed faintly, her royal garments shimmering even in captivity, and her eyes, crystal blue, filled with both strength and sorrow. Liara. Aaron's breath caught. His hands trembled, but not with fear. 2 decades of waiting, fighting, bleeding, all for this moment. Liara, he whispered, his voice breaking. As if she heard him, she turned. Her eyes locked onto his, wide with shock. She stumbled forward, clutching the bars. Aaron. The sound of her voice saying his name again after so many years shattered him. He rushed forward, gripping the bars. For a moment, nothing else in the world existed but the two of them, staring into each other's eyes. "I told you," Aaron said, his voice low and fierce. "I promised I'd come back." Tears welled in her eyes. I thought you were a dream. That night, I thought I imagined you." He shook his head, his rough hands holding hers through the bars. "I've been searching for you every day since. I'll never let them take you again." For the first time in years, Liara smiled, though her face trembled. "You kept your promise." But the moment broke. A siren blared. Red lights flashed, the fortress roaring with alarms. Guards stormed into the corridor, weapons raised. Aaron's men drew their blades, shouting. The air erupted in chaos. Blaster fire scorched the walls. Sparks flying. Aaron ripped a stolen rifle from one guard, firing back with deadly precision. "Rian, get the gate open." Rian dashed forward, slamming charges against the lock. "Cover me." Aaron fought like a man possessed, every strike fueled by 2 decades of rage. His blade cut through armor, his fists broke bones. But more soldiers poured in, their numbers overwhelming. Rian shouted, "Stand back!" The charges exploded, the gates shattering open in a burst of smoke and fire. Liara stumbled forward, chains glowing on her wrists. Aaron dropped his weapon, rushing to her. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he would never let go again. Her tears wet his shoulder, her body trembling against him. "I've got you," he whispered fiercely. "I've finally got you." Liara clung to him, her voice breaking. "I knew you'd come." But the soldiers closed in, their shouts echoing. Rian yelled, "We have to move now." Aaron pulled Liara close, guiding her through the smoke. His men fought desperately, blades flashing, blood spilling. The fortress shook as the first charges in the power sector detonated, lights flickering. The hallways became fire and chaos. Aaron shielded Liara with his body, forcing their way through. Every step was a battle, every second a fight to keep her safe. Finally, they burst through a side hatch, tumbling into the cold night air. The desert stretched wide, the fortress burning behind them. Aaron held Liara's face in his hands, their foreheads touching. For the first time in 20 years, they were together, yet their battle had only just begun. The desert night was alive with fire. The fortress roared behind them, its massive engines shaking the earth, its cannons blazing into the dunes. Searchlights cut across the darkness, hunting for the fugitives who had stolen what the slavers prized most. Aaron's lungs burned as he pulled Liara across the sand. She stumbled, chains still glowing on her wrists, but he never let her fall. His men followed close, their cloaks whipping the wind, weapons drawn. "Faster," Rian shouted, his voice hoarse. "They'll unleash everything." As if answering his words, a deafening boom split the air. The ground exploded nearby, spraying sand and fire. Liara cried out, covering her face, but Aaron threw himself over her, shielding her with his body. Shards of metal hissed past, one cutting across his shoulder. He gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. He lifted her quickly, his voice firm. "Stay with me, Liara. Don't stop." Her crystal blue eyes locked on his, full of fear but also trust. She nodded weakly. "I won't let go." They ran until their legs screamed, but the fortress released hunters, sleek alien vehicles roaring across the dunes, lights piercing the darkness. Dozens of armored soldiers poured from them, their glowing weapons raised. Aaron spun, rifle in hand, firing in sharp bursts. Each shot struck true, dropping soldiers in flashes of light. His men spread out, blades and explosives tearing through the attackers. The desert lit up with chaos, smoke rising into the night sky. But the enemy kept coming. One of Aaron's fighters fell with a cry, his body crushed under a vehicle. Another was struck by blaster fire, collapsing into the sand. The resistance was outnumbered, but they fought like wolves cornered. Rian shouted over the noise, "Aaron! We can't hold them forever." Aaron's voice was fierce. "We just need to get her away from here." Liara clutched her chains, her breath ragged. Memories of her captivity pressed against her heart. The slaver's cruelty, the endless years in silence. But now, Aaron was here, fighting like the promise he had once made was carved into his very soul. She felt tears sting her eyes. "He came for me. He never forgot." She pressed closer to him as the battle raged. "Aaron," she whispered, "why risk so much of me?" He turned, sweat and blood streaking his face, his eyes burning. "Because I promised. Because you're worth every risk." Her heart clenched, and for the first time in years, she felt hope bloom inside her. The slavers unleashed a monstrous machine, an armored beast that rolled across the sand, its cannons glowing. It loomed over them, ready to fire. Aaron shoved Liara down, raising his rifle. "Stay down." The cannon roared. Fire engulfed the dune. Sand exploded into the air, heat searing their skin. When the smoke cleared, Aaron still stood, shielding Liara with his body. His armor was scorched, his arm bleeding. But he didn't falter. He raised his blade, eyes fixed on the machine. Rian and the fighters hurled explosives at its wheels. The detonation shook the desert, tearing the beast off balance. With a final explosion, the machine toppled, flames swallowing a hole. The battlefield fell silent for a moment, only the crackle of fire breaking the air. Aaron pulled Liara up, gripping her hand tightly. "We have to move now." They staggered deeper into the desert, away from the fortress, away from the burning wreckage. The searchlights grew faint, the noise fading into the distance. At last, they reached a ridge, collapsing behind the rocks. Aaron dropped to his knees, chest heaving. Liara knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she touched the wound on his shoulder. "You're hurt." He shook his head, his eyes locked on her. "I've been hurt before. This is nothing compared to losing you again." Her tears spilled freely now. She cupped his face in her chained hands, her voice breaking. "You came back. After all these years, you came back." Aaron's voice was rough but steady. "I told you I would. I'll never break that promise, Liara. Not while I live." In the distance, the fortress still burned, its searchlights sweeping aimlessly. But here, hidden in the rocks, two souls held on to each other, bound by a vow that had survived chains, years, and fire. And for the first time in decades, Liara believed she might truly be free. The desert dawn broke in streaks of gold and crimson, the air still thick with smoke from a fortress burning on the horizon. Aaron and what remained of his fighters huddled behind the ridge, exhausted, their bodies battered but alive. The night had nearly swallowed them whole, yet somehow they had escaped. Liara sat beside Aaron, her silver-white hair catching the morning light. She traced the chain scars on her wrists with trembling fingers. For so long, she had lived behind walls and bars, a prize for others to trade. But here, in the open desert with Aaron, she felt something she had not felt in decades, freedom. Aaron tore strips of cloth from his cloak to bind his wound. His movements were rough, his body screaming with pain, but his eyes never left Liara. She noticed and gently reached out, covering his hand with hers. "You risked everything," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Why?" He looked at her steadily, the same way he had as a boy. Because I promise you, and I don't break promises. Tears glimmered in her crystal blue eyes. After all these years, you kept your vow. By midday, distant shapes appeared on the horizon. Aaron's fighters raised their weapons tense, but Liara stood, her posture suddenly regal. "No," she said softly. "Those are my people." Out of the shimmering heat came tall, elegant figures clad in silver armor. Their banners fluttered in the dry wind, bearing the crest of the Ilari royal line. As they drew near, the soldiers dismounted from their beasts and dropped to their knees in the sand. Their leader, a broad-shouldered alien with markings of command, lowered his head. "The heiress, she lives." His voice cracked with awe. A ripple spread through the ranks. Voices rose in reverence. "The heiress has returned. Our queen is alive." Liara stood tall, the chains clinking faintly at her wrists as she raised her hands. She had been stolen as a child, silenced, hidden, but her spirit had never broken. And now, before her people, she was no longer a captive. She was their queen. "Rise," she commanded, her voice steady yet warm. "I was taken, but I was never lost. I endure because of a vow made to me long ago, a promise kept by a human who never gave up. He freed me as a child, and he freed me again tonight. Without him, I would not stand before you now." Every soldier turned to Aaron. The human stood bloodied and weary, but unbowed, his eyes meeting theirs without flinching. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then, as one, the alien warriors struck their fists to their chests in salute. Not to their queen alone, but to the man who had returned her. Aaron's throat tightened, and used to such honor. He lowered his head slightly, but Liara stepped forward, placed her hand in his. Her voice was clear, carrying across the ranks. "This man is my protector, my friend, and my strength. He will walk beside me, as he always has." The crowd roared their approval, voices echoing to the desert canyons. That night, the Ilari celebrated beneath the stars. Fires burned high, songs of victory carried into the night sky. Liara sat among her people, dressed in garments of shimmering silk, her crown restored to her brow. Yet when she looked across the fire, her gaze always found Aaron. Later, when the noise had faded, she approached him. He sat alone at the edge of the camp, staring up at the stars, the same way he had as a boy. "You look out of place," she teased softly. Aaron gave a tired smile. "Maybe I am. You're a queen, Liara. And me? I'm just a fighter." She shook her head, stepping closer until she was before him. "No, you're the reason I'm here, the reason I'm free. You are more than a fighter. You are my promise made flesh." He looked at her, his expression raw. "And what now? Where do we go from here?" Liara reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his. Her crystal blue eyes shone with both love and certainty. "We go forward together. My throne means nothing without the one who kept his vow beside me." For a long moment, Aaron was silent. Then, slowly, he tightened his grip on her hand. A smile ghosted across his face. "Then I'll walk beside you. Always." Liara leaned closer, her voice soft but certain. "Then know this, Aaron. Your promise is no longer a burden. It is our bond. Forever." Above them, the stars shone bright, the same stars that had once witnessed a frightened boy vow to protect a chained girl. Now, decades later, that vow had become a destiny shared by two worlds. Together, they whispered the words that had carried them through fire, time, and war. "I will never leave you." And this time, it was not only a promise, it was forever